Yesterday's session was a weird one. There's a public holiday here today. My training with the track and field group, the running, got pushed forward to this morning instead of in the afternoon when it normally is. So that essentially means that from yesterday's weight session to today's running session, I had about 8 hours less to recover than I normally do. So yeah, yesterday's weight session is what you're seeing right now. Plus, considering that Sunday's weight session at the public gym was late at night, it means that I also didn't have as much time between that session and yesterday's weight session to recover. So you've got those two variables. And another thing on top of those two is that I had about an hour less sleep than I usually do, 2 days in a row. So I lost 2 hours of sleep in total as well. So that's three variables that are all pointing me towards a lower level of, I don't know what I should call it, readiness. A lower level of readiness for the session. Now, it's not like I was expecting to hit any personal bests or PRs or anything, but I still think this is one of those cases that serves as a good example for me and for everybody else probably who's watching this, as a good example of when and why you should modify your training. So the modification that I decided to make to this session was to do one less set of each exercise, but keep the intensity the same and keep the reps the same. Now, the sets themselves were pretty hard. I could feel that I wasn't 100%. So, for example, in the squat, even during the warm-up and before I put the 75 kilos on the bar, even in the warm-up with 40 like you're watching now, my hips were feeling tight. The right hip especially, I felt like when I got down to the bottom of the squat, it was just locked up. It was just stiff. I felt like I couldn't move down there. And specifically for the people here who know their anatomy, it was my right TFL, the tensor fascia lata, I think. And that's always usually tight on athletes who run, jump, kick, because it's a hip flexor and abductor, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, that muscle gets worked a lot, and it's something that when you get into the bottom of the squat, if you've got a lot of how should I call it, myofascial adhesions, if you got a lot of knots in there that need to be massaged out or stretched out, you're gonna feel it at the bottom of a squat because you're basically crunching the muscle together. You're squeezing, you're contracting it together, and if it's all banged up and the fibers have a lot of either scar tissue or whatever, or they're stuck together from all the repeated movements and you haven't released them properly, then you're going to feel it at the bottom of the squat because you're contracting the muscle together to get down to the bottom. Now, that being said, not only is it uncomfortable when you're sitting in the bottom of the squat, it's also uncomfortable when you try and explode out. And I wasn't really feeling comfortable because of how stiff my hips are and how much they need to probably open out a little bit. I still got to work on that recovery, that mobility. Sorry, but I kind of relied on the stretch reflex at the bottom to bounce out, even though I wasn't hitting full depth. I just went down to roughly parallel. Maybe on one of the sets you could probably see that it wasn't even to parallel, which I'm not too bothered about, because if I forced it with stiff hips, then my lower back would probably flex, and that would be the that butt wink that people talk about, and I didn't really want to do that, especially under load. So yeah, I cut the depth a little bit short in some of the sets. The first set was good, actually. I think you can see it now. It's actually good depth. But as I started to get tired and things started to get fatigued, I wasn't able to keep this up for the whole squatting part of the session. But to be honest, today, having recording this the day after the gym session, I feel vindicated in my decision to do one less set, because when I had to run this morning, I felt really good. So yeah, I felt like it was the right thing to do, and I got some good quality work in, but it also didn't compromise my training outcomes this morning in the running session. Where I had to sprint. So this is probably goes to show as well that when you build a solid base, and if you're in the process of building a solid base and you're doing a solid foundation of work, then when you cut back a little bit, you feel the benefits. You feel that freshness come back. So let's say, for example, I'd only be doing 3 sets this whole time for exercises. Like all the workouts you've seen, I've done 4 sets of the main exercises, the squats and the RDLs, etc. But if I'd only be doing 3 sets this whole time, then doing 3 sets again today wouldn't have been possible. I would have had to cut it down to 2 sets if I'd felt this way. But because I've been doing 4 working sets for the main exercises, then doing 3 felt like a breeze. Felt not like a breeze, but it felt easier, So I've always bounced around with a number of working sets, but I found that 4 tends to be a good number in terms of the outcomes that it gives me. And when you think about it, I've done 3 working sets of high quality with the same weight that I was going to do anyway, and that would be a normal workout had I only done 3 sets. But because I've been doing 4, the same amount of work is now a deload to me, which means that I'm more resilient than I was before. So, when the football season starts, I'm going to have to modify things again, because there's going to be other other training stimuli that come into play. There's a different set of variables. The stresses on my body are going to be different. But the good thing is that I've proved to myself now that building a base of resilience to training will serve me well long term. So ideally, I will have to go back to 4 sets on Sunday, but I should be recovered enough by then to do it. And the squats were decent, but the RDLs, they were okay. They were good in terms of my lower back. My lower back felt better than the last time I did these. But the problem was, I think, as is my problem all the time, if something's even a little bit difficult, I'll go into that mode of rushing it a little bit, because I kind of always rush. I rely on my explosiveness to get me through the rep, and that it's a good and bad thing. It's good in sports, but in the gym sometimes if you sacrifice form, then that can lead to some other issues. But let's look at the set now and see what it was looking like from side on. I actually hadn't had the time between the sets to look at this, but from what I could feel, it felt like I wasn't as strict with the hip hinge as I normally am, sorry. So the load, the tension, did go away from my hamstrings for a little bit, which is not what you want, obviously. So looking at the set now, 75 kilos, same as the squats. That was not that bad, but you can see that there's a fair bit of knee bend towards the bottom. Now, whether that's coming from my lack of range or me rushing it or both, we'll see over time. As I improve my range and get more mobile. Anterior pelvic tilt's still there. Still got to work on that. We'll see if the RDLs get better. But the good thing is I'm working all of this out at this weight, whereas if I had the same issues at heavier weights and I'd pushed it further, maybe that could have led to some problems. So, yeah, if you go too fast, sometimes you lose a little bit of form, and in my experience, the loss of form can affect the training stimulus in the target muscle group, and also in the nervous system, to be honest, because these exercises, we've got to remember, apart from these exercises just being tools to build the muscular system, they're also movements and skills that we get better at, and we get more efficient at executing them over time. So looking again at the RDLs, I think this set was actually a little bit better. I actually lost my balance because I was trying to have my weight on my heels, and you can see that the knee bend is slightly more. Not slightly more. The knee bend is toned back a little bit. I've been focusing on not bending the knees as much at the bottom of the rep. So that's what I was feeling, and that's the feedback that I was giving myself, just based on how I was feeling during the set. And it seems there that I picked it up well. And the thing is with RDLs is there's a bit of debate over knee bend, how much, when, where. During the rep, you should bend your knees. Ideally, I think the knee angle should probably stay as close to not straight, but just a slight bend the whole time, and it should be exclusively a hip movement. But again, this RDL, the problem is that sometimes when I'm not concentrating, I go into the movement pattern when I do power cleans and normal deadlifts, which has more knee bend. And so with the RDLs, I think I have to be a bit more strict. But it's just something to work on over time. And the good thing is I'm noticing it now, like I said before. Now, the Nordics, on the other hand, are definitely improving. I think that's just the byproduct of keeping the intensity the same, but then slowly improving and increasing the volume. So this is the reverse Nordics now, and I think I notice more improvement in the regular Nordics. So you'll see those after for the hamstrings where I fall forwards. But the reverse Nordics felt pretty good. Again, my ankles were a little bit stiff, a little bit painful, just pressing them into the ground. But I think that's just something that I need to expose them to, especially with my previous history of a really bad ankle injury on the left side. But yeah, the Nordics felt pretty good. My quads did feel pretty tight. Again, I was supposed to do 3 sets of 4 of these, but I ended up doing 2 sets today, and definitely feel like that was the right decision to make. It's now given me the opportunity to use today, after the running session this morning, as an opportunity to use the time effectively to recover, to do some mobility, to do some stretching, to do some foam rolling, to try and gain a little bit of range in my hips that will free up that movement and allow me to execute the exercises more efficiently, and also probably carry over to my running mechanics, my, risk of injury, etc. So, I mean, the Nordics are a different type of exercise. There's a larger learning curve and difficulty of executing them properly. And what I mean by that is, with Nordics, the regular ones at least, for the hamstrings, you could work on them for years and still not be able to do 1 rep. And by 1 rep, I mean a full rep. So going all the way down with control, keeping tension on the hamstrings the whole time, touching your nose on the ground, still in control and still under tension, and then contracting your hamstrings for the concentric portion back up to the starting position, which is very difficult. Very difficult. Now with the reverse Nordics, it is slightly easier because naturally I think a lot of people have stronger quads than they do hamstrings. And also because you've got the ankle dorsiflexors, so the anterior tibialis is also pushing into the ground, which is also providing you with some force to get back up. So it's easier to do the reverse Nordics for an eccentric and a concentric portion at the same time. Now, again, 2 sets. I thought, I think at the end of that I was considering doing a 3rd set, but I think discipline won over in the end. Call it discipline, experience, whatever you want. But I decided, no, that's enough. 2 sets of 4 is enough of a stimulus, because 2 sets of 4 was my working set amount of, it was my normal amount of volume, I don't know, a month or 2 ago, I can't remember. But now two sets of 4 is a deload, because I've been building up the volume. So it's the same theme here. When you go down in volume, you really notice it by how much fresher you feel. And here you see the normal Nordics. The regular Nordics have much more control than they did a couple sessions ago, the last time I did these. I'm able to keep tension on the hamstrings at longer lengths. And you can see there, just feeling a bit more comfortable. Still got a bit of anterior pelvic tilt, but that's really hard to avoid with the Nordics. Definitely I could feel the tension, and I think that the one variable that I have to add in at some stage to my hamstring strength and development is looking at different contraction speeds. So I have to look at exercises that the hamstring has to contract quicker. And obviously high-speed running and running mechanics drills are very good for this. But there's other stuff that you can do in the gym. I just have to do a bit more research and find out which exercises would probably be best for me to target the hamstrings in that way. let's say if I move to a power block where I'm doing exercises that are more explosive in nature and have a quicker, a much shorter time under tension, then the Nordics won't really fit in with that because they're a very slow contraction speed. And they're very good for eccentrically strengthening the hamstrings. But you have to remember that strength is also specific. So they have an impact on sprinting performance in that they do protect you a little bit from injuries. But all the literature that I've read and the people that I've spoken to who've worked with athletes at the highest levels, they all agree that sprinting itself is the best form of injury prevention for hamstrings. So exposing yourself to high speeds in a controlled manner, slowly increasing the speed and the volume in that order, by the way, is itself a good protective mechanism from hamstring injuries. So there's a lot to think about, a lot of food for thought here. Again, with the side lunges, I kept the weight light, 2 sets of 8s, I'm pretty sure. So I'd always been doing 3 sets, if I remember correctly, of the side lunges and the ab wheel rollouts, which you'll see as well. So again, being disciplined, cut off 1 set, down to 2, and it felt good, felt like a deload. So I think it was a good decision. Again, with the adductor work, the side lunges, I probably should get it up to 4 sets, but I'm going to have to build that up, and I've got to be wary of that. So it depends on how I'm feeling on Sunday. If I'm feeling really, really good, really fresh, then I will try that. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. And pretty sure Sunday will be sets of 4, if I'm not mistaken. On the other exercises, on the squats and the RDLs, the single leg squats and the single leg RDLs. So we'll see how it goes. I may very well be fresh enough to add another set to the side lunges, or the adductor exercise. I think it'll be the adductor machine, which I may have already done 4 sets. I can't remember. I definitely didn't do 4 sets last Sunday. I think I did 3. So I used to do 4 sets on the adductor machine. So 4 sets is definitely my target for the adductor work. Again, with the ab wheel rollout, I should probably get that up to 4 sets as well. This is all about building that resilience to training load, because when it comes to the football season and I have to be very, very mindful and careful and very specific with the work that I do, I'll have to plan out everything. I'll have to plan out a month in advance every single set of each exercise, and I'll have to do it in a different way. You know, I might have to have the working sets going up in weight so that I only hit the target weight for 1 set to get that nervous system force expression training stimulus, but then minimize the muscular damage with the previous working sets. Whereas if I did every set at the maximum weight, yeah, okay, I'd be training myself to execute that same amount of force, but at what cost? It'd be with a lot of muscular fatigue as well, and I can't really afford that when you have to think about performance outcomes and football training, football matches, which present a whole lot of variables. But anyway, that's all for today. If you enjoyed, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. So I'll catch you in the next one, guys.